To foreign policy from the Carnegie Endowment, Robert Kagan, member of the Reagan administration, has written a lot on foreign policy over the years, and you have I guess in this day and time, people would call it a provocative article.
Yeah, imagine calling for bipartisanship. It's unheard of.
Because you say, and I'm going to just read the first paragraph of the piece, it's a fascinating piece. Unnoticed among the sniping in Washington over health care and the wailing about broken government, a broad and durable bipartisan consensus has begun falling into place in one unlikely area, foreign policy. Okay?
Well,
defend that.
It's actually pretty easy to defend, remarkably enough. I mean, if you think about the really big issues that this administration's had to deal with, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, wars, expensive, potentially controversial. On all three of those issues, there's really very little difference between Republicans and the administration. Republicans have supported them in Afghanistan. I think they're both on the same page on Iraq at this point, and on Iran, as the administration is clearly toughening its approach and moving towards sanctions, I think it has complete bipartisan support. It's hard to think of another time in recent memory when you've had such bipartisan support on those kinds of major issues.
It is kind of interesting to hear you say that, and I tend to agree with what you have said, but how they got to come together on, say, for Iran, for instance, is not exactly the way this administration would have planned it, I suppose, because they've been trying to engage Iran, and as they have been unable to do so, they seem to find themselves falling back to a lot of the policies and the approach taken by the Bush administration.
Well, first of all, bipartisanship is never pretty, but I think that the administration would say in its defense that they always knew there was a reasonable chance that engagement wasn't going to work. I think there are very senior officials in this administration who expected Iran to spurn these offers, but I do think Obama accomplished something very important, which was building a broad and even worldwide consensus that Iran is not interested in talks no matter how sincere an American president is in trying to engage them, and that's been useful, and that is why we're now coming closer to a bipartisan position.
So what do you think is going to happen there? Do you think there are going to actually be some strong sanctions?
I do. I think that I don't expect any cooperation from China and even Russia ultimately, but I think what the administration's hoping to do is get some kind of even watered-down Security Council resolution so that they can then work with the Europeans, who really are sort of fired up on this issue. I've been in Europe recently. It's much more than they used to be.
If you can't get China and you can't get Russia, how do you make that work?
Well, it'll be harder, obviously, but I do think there are some important things that the West can do on banking, on insurance, which affect the regime. And, you know, in the old days, before there was the June 12th elections and there wasn't much of an opposition, you'd say, what does it mean? Right now, the government's unstable. I don't think that the regime in Iran is completely in control. And so anything you do, it doesn't have to be everything. Anything you do can have an impact on the internal situation.
I think one of the things you cite in your article is that Republicans have supported most of what this president has done in Afghanistan. But does anybody see that policy changing anything very much? How would you sum up where Afghanistan is right now?
Well, you know, it's too early to say, and I haven't been there. But reports coming out of Afghanistan that I hear are that things are actually doing a lot better. And I don't think, I think we're going to see real progress over the next year. I have a lot of confidence in the military command there. I think their strategy looks right. People said you couldn't turn Iraq around, and that turned out to be wrong. I think we will turn Afghanistan around. And
how about the whole business of terrorism and how we're meeting that threat? Do you think the Obama administration, I hear a lot of criticism from Republicans on that.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, that's certainly one area where Republicans have really gone after the administration. I do think the administration left itself a little vulnerable, as much rhetorically as anything else, to the perception that they're more interested in protecting terrorists or suspected terrorist rights than they are in fighting terrorism. I think if you look at what the administration has done in practice in terms of what they used to call the war on terror, look at the escalation in Afghanistan, look at the consistent policy in Iraq, the increase of drone strikes, they're killing a lot of terrorists. So it isn't really that soft a policy, but on some of these issues like where to try terrorists, whether to do it in New York, military tribunals, the administration has been vulnerable. But what else is happening? The administration seems to be taking a tougher line on a lot of these issues and shifting its position, which means even on this, I can imagine eventually coming to some kind of agreement.
Robert Kagan, a fascinating article in Foreign Policy magazine. I would say recommended reading. Thank you very much for it.